Hello, fellow wargamers and history buffs. I had the great pleasure of attending Consim Expo 2025 just a week or so ago. And while I was there, we played La Bataille de Mont St. We were using the 5th edition rules, and this was a 6-player game. I was playing the British basically over on the right side, on the western side of the Brussels Highway. My colleague Rick White was playing the British and Allies on the east side of the highway, as well as the Prussian Second Corps. And then Warren Kingsley rounded out our group playing the Prussians. He had the Fourth Corps primarily. On the opposite side of our table was Bill, who was playing principally the Second Corps of the French and the French Imperial Guard. In the center, we had Robert, who was playing Lebau's Corps and the Guard. And then over on the east side of the map was Mike Hawkins, who was playing the bulk of the First Corps, as well as the Young Guard. Now, the game itself for the French was one of maneuver for the first several hours of the game. They had moved the bulk of the Second Corps over to the west of Hougoumont, making room in the center between Hougoumont and the Brussels Highway for the Middle Guard and Old Guard and 2 grand batteries. A little further to the east, they had the First Corps of the French lined up. And then off to the far distance, they sent the Young Guard as well as 2 divisions of light cavalry to hold up and stymie the Prussians.
Here is the situation at the La Bataille de Mont St. As of the beginning of the 520 turn. Over here on the Allied right, we've got some French heavy cavalry and light cavalry and elements of the Second Corps massing in the area just north of Hougoumont. The British are here prepared to deal with that contingency. Moving a little further along the line, you'll see that we've got elements of the French Guard have moved out. We have a couple of grand batteries, including one under the command of Napoleon here in the center. And we've had some British and some of their allies come out. We've had a few cavalry charges. Not all of the exhausted markers are cavalry charges. We're running out of command markers. So if there's an exhausted marker on an infantry unit, we know that it's out of command. And we're using the ammunition. So we have a little dice there to indicate whether the battery is full or if it's used some of its ammunition. As a player aid, I've created these little blocks. I just basically took a photocopy of some of the counters. So here, for example, is the Duke of Wellington. Over here is the Prince of Orange. And then here on a separate sheet, I've got their various ADC. So that way, when Wellington's dispatching his couriers, they're there. And then it's always easy for me to know where my different leaders are. I've done the same thing for the French, and they're using them in a few places. So that's what those blocks are out there. Now, moving further along, the Grand Battery has reduced the troops that were defending La Haye Sainte, but we're bringing up some forces here to kind of put some pressure on the French. They didn't really attack along this section of the line. They just kind of held the First Corps back. So that's giving us some latitude to be a little bit more aggressive with the Allied forces out on this side, kind of potentially spoiling their attack here in the center. And as we continue on a little bit further to the east, you'll see that the Prussian First Corps is here on the map. They're making their way to the farm here at Mont St. Jean as basically a backstop for the Allied forces. Moving a little further along the line, we'll see that the Prussians are engaged here fighting against the elements of the First Corps and some of the light cavalry of the Guard. And then along here, we've got a bit of a road jam, a bit of a traffic jam, as the Prussians try to fight through the Young Guard, and I think this is Jacquinot's light cavalry that had been positioned out here, basically trying to bottle up or delay the Prussians who are trying to make their way over to Plassenois and to cut the road to France. So that's the situation at the beginning of the 520 turn. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Here's the situation at the end of the 6 o'clock turn. We have the French First Corps and some heavy cavalry moving forward a bit from Hougoumont area. The Old Guard has pulled back a bit after having engaged with some of the Hanoverians and the Nassauers. And then as we move down along the line, we can see that we have two grand batteries here, one with Napoleon and one a little bit over with Drouot. And the Dutch Belgians have reoccupied La Haye Sainte. There's been some cavalry action out here in this part of the line. The French First Corps here, yes, First Corps, is squared up. And as we go a little further back, we can see that the Prussians are pushing through this area finally, and more reinforcements are moving up. And then it looks like there's a breakthrough happening here, where the Young Guard has finally gotten kind of caught and pushed away. The Prussians are now starting to move through this area. Meanwhile, the Prussian First Corps units are marching towards the chateau there at Mont St. Jean, basically to back up the British and their allies in case anything unexpected happens on that side of the line. And that's the situation at the end of the 6 o'clock turn. Well, here we are looking at the situation at the beginning of the 7:20 turn. Pretty quiet over here by the map edge, but as we move closer to Hougoumont, we can see that the French are starting to push in, making some attacks on the British positions along there. They've tried to establish a grand battery here, right on the edge of the British line. It's been doing some work. It's taken out a few light cavalry leader and taken out a few tirailleurs. Nothing to speak of. Meanwhile, British are engaged along the line here with the French, and the Brunswickers have brought up some forces. Here in the center, though, things are getting very interesting. The grand battery that had been formed by Napoleon packed up and started to move last turn. And as it was moving forward, the British moved light cavalry in behind it, and there's another light cavalry division there. And of course, then we've got the horse guards here. We're going to be seeing a lot of action here along the line this coming turn. So that's where things stand at the moment here as we begin the turn for the 7:20 turn. Meanwhile, along this part of the line, it's been pretty quiet. The French have held back. Back behind Mont St. Jean, additional reinforcements are filling in from the First Corps. And then out here on this end of the line, finally there's been a breakthrough here in the area behind these woods. The French light cavalry of the Young Guard been more or less reduced. There's elements of de Roland's corps have moved to try to form some sort of screening position. More reinforcements finally started to move here for the Prussians, and still some engagement here, but mostly breaking through, but it's still very sticky. Prussians have not made as much movement forward as they probably should. So that's where things are at the moment. Here we go. All right, here we are at the start of the 8 o'clock turn on the western edge of the map. We've got the Dutch Belgians have been fighting bravely to hold this little town, which no one has attacked, so that's what they call progress. The tired markers there are not really tired, it's just additional prone markers. Here as we move along the line, we can see the French moved up. They did cause, they did have a successful assault there, but they lost rather heavily in the process. We had some charges and countercharges here in the center, and the heavy cavalry's moved up with the idea of being able to do a grand charge in a future turn. Going along the line here, the Brunswickers have been pushed forward to engage with elements of the Second Corps. Meanwhile, grand batteries and chasseurs and grenadiers of the Old Guard are defending the center. Along this side of the line, we've got some of our German allies who've engaged the Guard, causing a fair number of increment losses. There's Napoleon hanging out on a battery, and the Hanoverians and Dutch Belgians are holding and defending there at the farm La Haye Sainte. Further back behind the lines, we've got lots of British, lots of cavalry, and we've got the elements of the Prussian First Corps who have come on to backstop anything that might happen to the British there. Out here towards the east side of the Brussels Highway, we've had some cavalry action out here, but the elements of the first Division are basically hanging out in defense there. Moving over to the east, the French have put up a valiant fight, holding back the Prussians. There are lots and lots of Prussian reinforcements still coming through. The Prussians finally were able to break through the choke points here around the forest. And then a little further south,
more Prussians flowing through and engaging those elements of the first corps that's still there. Back on this side of the map, a few more reinforcements making their way along through the trails and forest. And then in this area here, we can see there's progress making as some of the Prussian cavalry and other units make their way towards Place and Mont off in the distance. That's where things stand at 8 p.m. As you saw from the video recap, the French didn't really launch their attack with their infantry until the 7 o'clock turn. And by that time, things were getting a little late. They'd already had their flank turned in the east, with the Prussians breaking through the defenses held by the First Corps and also by the Young Guard. And the Prussians were making their way towards Plassenois and the very important road back to France. If the French don't hold that road at the end of the scenario, all of their corps are considered on level 3, and they basically lost the game. So they'd thrown everything into the front line, and it wasn't likely they were going to be able to get anything back in time to save that. Meanwhile, over on the west side of the map, where they would launch their attack, they were poised to do a grand charge. I don't know that it would have done too much because that section of the map has got a lot of really rough terrain. They might have been able to knock a few British units around, but it wasn't going to be enough to tip them scales in their favor. At that particular point in time, no British unit had suffered any losses. No battalions had been destroyed. Only a KGL, well, actually, I think 2 KGL units had been eliminated. Otherwise, a lot of Belgians and Nassauers had suffered from the cannonade from the Grand Batteries. Meanwhile, the French Middle Guard and Old Guard had gotten pretty badly shredded from Allied artillery attacks in the preceding hours, as well as rifle fire there in the area south of the ridgeline between La Haye-Saint and Hougoumont. So that was kind of how things were looking. We called the game at the end of the 8 o'clock turn. It was definitely going to be an Allied victory. There was no other way around it. And we shook hands and said, great job, everybody. We'd had a lot of fun that week playing, getting to know our teammates, and everyone having a chance to learn a little bit more about how the 5th edition rules work, and exploring some of the mechanisms in that were unfamiliar to some of the other players. Well, that's the recap for the game at Consim. If you are interested in learning more about the 5th edition rules, you can watch, somewhere popping up here on screen, a link that will take you to a playlist of a live stream that we did of La Bataille de Mont St, about 5 years ago, using the 5th edition rules. Now, we just recently finished a La Bataille de Mont St using Regs 30, so if you want to watch that, that'll be popping up over here as well. Tune in for our regular live streams of La Bataille games. We're usually doing those on Monday evenings, and we'd love to see your comments. Similarly with this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, make any comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, you can do so just by going to buymeacoffee.com, where you can buy me a coffee, or you can become a regular monthly member of the channel here. Until our next episode, everybody, be well.